Hi everyone, my name's Kate Kalthoff, independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I'm going to teach you how to make this more manly Christmas card. I have a couple of hunters in the family, so I like to specialize every year a special card just for them. And so we're going to use the stamp set today called Jolly Christmas, and this is one of the stamp sets that I recently purchased, and I bought it especially because of this deer. But I also like the sayings quite well, and I was just crazy about these snowflakes. And so let me go ahead and show you this card. And you can see it uses some masculine colors of the green and the cherry cobbler. And then I've also done a little bit of sponging, actually heavy sponging on the designer series paper, just to give that more of a rustic look. And so here's the inside panel. And I will go ahead and show you how to create this card. So the first thing that you're going to need is some cherry cobbler cardstock. This is cut at 5.5 by 8.5, and then I've scored it at 5 1/4. So what I'm going to do is just take my bone folder, I'm going to fold towards the score line, and then just give it a press, and then it will lie flat for us while we work with it. And we are going to go ahead and do our inside panel right away. The inside panel takes a piece of very vanilla cardstock. This is cut at 4 by 5 1/4. And then I did use a piece of designer series paper from the Merry Moments 6 by 6 designer series paper pack. And this is cut at 1/2 inch by 5 inches. I stamped Joy to the World at the top. And then I also used a sponge and just sponged some So Saffron along the edges. So what I'm going to do is use my snail, and I'll just flip this over and put snail right along the top. And we can go ahead and insert this into the inside panel of the card, making sure all 4 borders are nice and even. And then we are going to set this aside for a minute while we work on the rest of the card. I'm going to bring some scrap paper in, and we are going to take this piece of designer series paper from the Merry Moments designer series paper pack, and I want to show you that paper pack real quickly. This is a paper pack that has 48 sheets in it, and it's 24 sheets, 2 double-sided designs. So you would get these two, or this is 1 sheet of paper, but I'm just showing you both designs. And then here's the other sheet of paper with both designs. And so if you like to make Christmas cards where you make a lot of them the same, you don't want to vary your designer series paper, this is a great paper because you can get a lot of cards out of this designer series paper where you can keep the cards quite similar. And so I picked the plaid to work with, and I have it cut at 3 7/8 by 5 1/4. And we're going to take a Stampin' sponge, and then I've just inked it in some So Saffron ink, and I'm just going to start sponging the white out of this designer series paper. I think for a more masculine card, the white is just not where I want it to be, at least in today's card. So we are just going to sponge all that white right out. And we are left with a new looking piece of designer series paper. And then we're going to secure this onto a piece of old olive paper. This old olive paper is 4 by 5 1/4, and it will be 1/8 inch larger than our designer series paper. So I'm just going to flip this over. I'm going to take some multi-purpose liquid glue, and we're just going to make a nice skinny line all the way around. Then we can put this right on top of this old olive paper and just kind of make sure that is nice and even. It's a kind of a skinny border on all 4 sides. So this is really nice to use glue because you have that little bit of wiggle room to get it just where you want it. Now I'm going to show you the layers for the next part of this, and we are going to do a little stamping. This is where our deer is going to go. So this is very vanilla paper as well, and it's 2 1/4 inches by 4 1/2 inches. And I'm going to use my deer, and I have him on a block D, and then I also put the Believe right down here just below the deer. So we can stamp these 2 images with one fell swoop. And so I'm going to ink this up with some cherry cobbler ink, and then I can just, and I want to keep this towards the top of my paper, so I'm just going to stamp it right in here. And I'm giving it a little bit of time so the ink has time to kind of soak into the paper. I don't want to rock the stamp. I'm just pressing straight down, and now when I lift it up, I have a real nice image. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take this image, and using our sponge with our So Saffron ink, we're just going to sponge all the way around. I'm going to keep my sponging nice and loose because I want to bring it in towards the deer quite a bit. And so we're just gonna kind of not completely cover it, but you can see how I'm bringing it in so that the deer sort of has this halo of gold around it. And so this is what that looks like when you have your sponging complete. And my lighting net might be a little bright, so you might not be able to see that as well. But now we're going to layer this onto an old olive panel. This old olive panel is 1/8 inch larger than our Whisper White panel, and it's 2 5/8 by 4 5/8. So we're just going to flip this over, and I'm going to use some snail on the back. You can see where I was experimenting with a little sponging on the other side. But we're going to set this right here, and again, I'm going to be careful before I set it down. I won't have the wiggle room with this because I did not use snail. I don't like glue lines showing through on my Very Vanilla or Whisper White, so I have to be careful, but I did a good job, as you can see. And then this is our next layer that we're going to put this on, and this is Cherry Cobbler, and it's 1/4 inch larger than our green panel, so it's cut at 2 7/8 by 4 7/8. And we're just going to use a little multi-purpose liquid glue on the back, and we're just going to set this right in here, and this will give us a little bit of wiggle room, so that's kind of fun. And now we are going to just glue this right onto our main panel that's going to go on the front of our card. So again, a little bit of multi-purpose liquid glue on the back, and then we can just set this in here so that these three sides are even. Well, maybe not quite even on the right, but for sure even between the top and the bottom, and then just a little bit more on the right. Just show off that plaid a little bit more there on the right. Now I have a 1/2 inch by 4 inch piece of our Merry Moments Designer Series paper, and I'm going to set this, actually I'm going to glue it right onto the front here because I want to give the deer somewhat of a platform here. Just kind of anchors it a little bit, and we can go ahead and glue this down. And you can see this is the other side of that plaid paper that I used on my card. So we're just going to set this right in here and make sure that is straight across, and we'll just press that in and give it a couple of seconds to dry. And now we can go ahead and we can add some baker's twine. So the baker's twine that I'm going to use is our gold baker's twine, and I'm going to loop this around my card panel twice. So to do that, I know that I want to have about this much for tying off, and then I just hold it in place with my thumb, and then I just go around twice, and then I cut it so that I have enough to loop into a knot. I'm going to use my Stampin' Up! Craft scissors, which I've set aside for ribbons and twine, and then I can go ahead and I'll just tie this into a knot. And I have a little time here. I mean, if it isn't quite where I want it, I can wiggle it into place. So I'm just gonna make a nice knot here. And I sort of like the crisscross look, and I sort of want to keep that knot in the center of this vanilla panel. So I think that looks pretty good. So now I can go ahead and trim up the excess, just so we don't have such long strands hanging down. And we are ready to put this on the front panel of our card. So I'm just going to do that with a couple of dimensionals. One dimensional should suffice in each corner. Whenever I have more bulky items going through the back panel of my card, it's always a good idea just to adhere that panel with dimensionals. It'll give it just a little bit of lift and a little bit of airiness on your card. So now I can just go ahead and I'll center this in onto my card so that it's even all the way around. And for the finishing touch, we're going to add some candy dots here at the bottom. So I have the bright dots because I wanted to coordinate with the olive green that I've picked for my borders. So I'm just using my paper piercing tool, and I'm just going to take 3 of these dots and line them up here along the bottom right edge of this vanilla panel. Just like that. And our card is done. Here's a close-up of it. Here's the card I did in advance. And I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you need a demonstrator, be sure to visit my website at www.stampingtoshare.com. And if you like this video, be sure to leave a comment and let me know. Have a great day. I truly appreciate you. Bye-bye.